I'm here to talk to you today about building your brand and finding your audience on Instagram. I'm pretty much just going to dive straight in, but I will introduce myself first. That's if my screen plays ball. My name's Ella and I'm the owner and founder of Sociella. So I'm a social media manager and content creator for busy business owners. I work with a huge range of businesses, from hair and beauty salons, sex and relationship coaches, beauty brands, and they kind of range from all over the world and the UK, which is pretty amazing. You can find me on Sociella UK on Instagram. Please give me a follow, say hello. I'd love to connect with you. I'm also just starting my LinkedIn journey. So if you'd like to connect on LinkedIn, then please find me. I'm Ella at that's my email, Ella Gilchrist. You can also find more information on my services and what I do at www.sociella.co.uk, and you can find me on TikTok, Sociella UK, although I haven't posted on there in a little while, so that's where you can find me. I'd love to connect with you, so yeah, send me a message, send me a DM, and we can have a chat. I'm going to dive straight in. All about branding yourself on Instagram and finding your audience. I know you have sent in some questions, so they will be answered at the end, and also I'm hoping that some of them might be answered throughout. If anything pops up, then do just write in the chat. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here, so let's do it. So my first, let me just minimize this, right, my first slide is about formulating the perfect bio on Instagram. Now, I know some of you have had training and you've got information on Instagram, so I'm not going to dive in too deep into this, but it's just some tips to help your profile be the best it can be so that you can be found by the people that you want to connect with. So you'll see that number one is your display name here. So this is the part that's searchable on Instagram, and this is where you're going to want to include any keywords that you want to be discovered for. So for example, I've got my name and then social media manager and content creator, in the hopes that if people type in social media manager or content creator, then my profile will come up. So as an example, your name might be Anne and you might be a beauty journalist. So you might put Anne and then beauty journalist. Just keep it super simple. It doesn't have to be specific. You could just put journalist or author, whatever it may be that relates to what you do is what you want to put into that display name section. Number two, which you can kind of see here, is your pronouns. So if you're a team of people, you've got a publication, you may not want to use a section, but if you're just an individual, then you might want to, just to ensure that you don't get misgendered and people know how to gender you if they are to speak to you. And number three, which is, I don't actually have number three, so it's kind of difficult for me to show you here, but there is an option in Instagram for you to put what your account is about. So for example, mine is entrepreneur, because it's kind of a loophole into getting decent music for reels. So it means you don't get that awful, like dodgy elevator music. You can actually get the trending sounds. There is an option, I did check, for journalist, or you may want to use something like a personal blog. It's not a huge deal what you pick. You don't even have to show it, but if you do, then that is what the category section is for, and you can find the category that works best for you and what you do. Number four, I've just realized all my numbers are kind of out a little bit. Number four is this section here. So this is your bio. So Instagram only allows you to use 150 characters, which is quite small. It's quite a small amount of characters. So what's key here is to really grab attention of your target audience in just a few words. Now, I have got a slide on this section, so I won't dive too deep into it right now, but I think a really nice way is to bullet point it, use keywords into what you perhaps write about, what your publication is about. And actually, I'll wait until the slide, otherwise I'm going to give it all away. But that is like your bios. That's where you want to tell your audience everything about what you do and who you offer. Number 5 is your website link. Now, you may have a website already that's your kind of portfolio, so I definitely include that. Or you may want to use programs such as like Linktree or Milkshake to create like custom link pages. So this might be a really nice way for you to show the articles or the publications, new editions in that page listed so that people can easily find them if they do head to the link in your bio and want to learn more about you. Number 6 is this kind of section here. So that's just for your address. I mean, this might not be relevant, but for me, I live in Brighton and Hove and I want to attract some local businesses. So I put mine in there, but you don't have to, it's not a must do, but if you're looking to perhaps attract some local organizations or publications, then that might be just a nice thing to pop in there. But it doesn't affect your account being not seen by somebody, for example, in London. It's just a place for you to tell people where you're based, essentially. Now we are onto the profile bio. So I've included some bullet points here. So I know I've just explained some of this, but I'll go into a bit more detail on it. So as you can see from mine, I've got like bullet points with emojis. So I think personally, this just makes a bio really simple and easy to read. I've got in mind just a really clear description of what I do and who I serve. For you, it might be what you write about, or it might be publications that you work with. What I would suggest on this is not to tag that particular publication, because I feel sometimes that that's inviting people to then click away from your profile and just go and visit that page. So, for example, you write for Mashable and Refinery. You could write that simply rather than tagging the actual publication, just to make sure that people, when they come on your profile, they stay on your profile and don't end up going elsewhere. What I really like to do, which you can't actually see on this example here because it's under this more bit, is include a call to action. So my call to action is let's work together, or something along those lines, with an arrow, like a pointy finger, that points down to my link to really try and encourage people to take that next step. So just really be clear and tell your audience what you want them to do next. For example, if you've got a new article out, tell people about it and really entice them to click that link in your bio. And another thing to consider is just to use keywords that's going to attract your ideal audience. So if you're somebody that writes about politics and your kind of niche is to make it really simple for people that may not understand or may not be in that kind of world or industry, you could put something like politics made easy to understand. If you're a beauty journalist, for example, you might put something like sourcing the best skincare so you don't have to. So it's giving people that kind of information from the offset to really know what you talk about and what you can help with, because you're kind of cutting out. So they're thinking, oh, I don't need to research that because this person's already done it for me. So they're going to click follow so they can see what all your reviews are like, for example. Yeah, that's kind of building your profile and writing your bio. Next up is your profile picture. I won't go too deep into this, but I always like to think that if you are showing a picture of yourself, then having like a headshot from your shoulders up just allows for your profile picture to be super clear and really inviting to your potential new follower and your audience. So thinking along the lines of this rather than this picture, which is quite zoomed out. Another option, which is what I've done for my profile, is to use like a colourful branded background. So this will just make your profile picture like really stand out, especially if you've done a story and you've kind of got that little ring around your face at the top when people were scrolling through their stories. So that's a really nice way to make your profile picture super clear. What I would kind of avoid is images that are kind of busy, like this has got the lamp and the plant in it and there's quite a lot going on. I think just making it super clear and simple is a really nice way to just showcase you to your audience. Another thing here is just making sure it's like a really nice high contrast. This is quite overexposed, whereas these two are a little more, they're a bit clearer, so it just makes it nicer to look at. And also, if you're a team or you're a publication, you may just want to use your logo, of course. So it's just a case of making sure that that's a super high quality version of your logo and doesn't look blurry or anything like that. Now, I'm sure most of you are aware of the different features and things you can do on Instagram, but I'm just going to go through them and just show you some examples and talk about how you could use them best for your Instagram. So carousel posts, you may know them by them looking a little bit like this on your feed. So a carousel post allows you to share up to 10 images. What I would say with those is to make sure that they're super clear, they're providing value, they're either entertaining, they're showing off your talents, or perhaps what points you cover in a potential article that you've written, to really entice people to want to know more. And I think in the next slides I've got some examples. So I took this example from Refinery because I really liked it. So this is the first slide here. So you've got really simple, there's an image on it and there's a headline on it. So it instantly draws your attention, which is great. And then the next slide is giving a before picture, and the next one after that is the after. I just thought this was a really nice way to showcase what's inside the article without giving too much information, but it's also enticing people because they're showing a visual representation of what they're talking about and why that particular person's not going to look back from getting baby Botox. So the call to action in that caption would be something along the lines of head to the link in our bio to read more. So I just thought that was a really nice example of using a carousel to help show what you've perhaps written about your publication. Another one by Refinery. So again, it's got an image on the first slide and just a really simple headline to draw attention and like catch people's eye when they're scrolling through their feed. And what I really liked about the following slides is that they've just used a really simple background and they've just screenshotted tweets by people who have written about this particular topic, which is Disney's first plus-size animated character. So it's kind of really nice to show the research behind that, which I thought was a really interesting thing to show. So you've kind of got people's reactions to it, they've got their opinions on it, and other people it's got showing what other publications have perhaps said about it. So it's just a really nice way, I thought, of showing a kind of process into the behind the scenes of an article. And then you've got the caption, which is going to give more information on that particular post. And then again, the call to action to head to the link in our bio to read more. Unfortunately, with Instagram, it is a case of encouraging people to go to the link in your bio. You can't publish links or clickable links in captions, which is a little bit annoying. So you really want to try and entice that person with the sort of images and the text that you use for them to want to know more and to actually exit Instagram as well. Like you're trying to get them to click on the link, which is then going to take them somewhere else. So it's all about trying to tell a really cool story with your article and using that feature in that way. Next is single image posts. Now, these can be really great with growth and engagement. You can use a really powerful attention-grabbing headline. For example, stylists have done the same kind of thing as Refinery had done. It's got a really good, clear headline on it, and then it's got an image. I think it's really important to keep things pretty visual in in Instagram, rather than just having like, for example, just like a black square with this text on, because it doesn't then look quite as enticing to read. And as you can see here on Refinery again, they've put like a tweet that they've either found, or it might be even a tweet that you've written that you can just put onto a really nice background, and that can be your post. You can totally repurpose what you already do on other platforms onto Instagram, and I think that's a really nice way to use single image posts as well. Stories. So stories can really help you to build trust with your audience and kind of let them get to know you a little bit more on maybe a more personal level. So I mean, here's me, I do stories fairly regularly. So I always kind of take people on a bit of a journey, perhaps of my day. If I've done something interesting, then I'll talk about it. What you could potentially use stories for is to kind of give maybe a bit of background into the particular article or news story that you may have written, or your opinion on something that's been big news on that day, and you can talk about it in your stories. And then if you've written something about it, I really like the way that Stylist magazine kind of made this template. So you've got an image on there, so it's super engaging. You've got text on there so people know what to expect. And you can now in Instagram put in your link to wherever the article may be. And you don't need 10,000 followers anymore in order to do this. So it's brilliant news for people that don't have 10,000 or more followers, because you can simply just go into the stories, like edit button, and you can press link, and all you've got to do is just paste it in. And then like stylists have done stylist.co.uk, but you could put something else, or you could put read more. It's just giving people like another call to action and to entice them to click on that link essentially. What I will say with stories, if you are talking into them, like this example here, then do use the caption option, as it just makes sure that your content is super accessible to everyone that views it. Another, oh, okay, that video did work. I was nervous that it wasn't going to work. So Reels, they're really great for reach and growth. They generally have a higher reach than perhaps static posts, although at the moment it does seem that static posts are kind of getting their time back again. Reels, I thought would be really nice way for you to use Reels is to like kind of share your behind the scenes. It can be a time lapse of you writing, researching. You could even talk through your process on how you get to a final article or journal entry or blog entry. So you can really use these to kind of take your audience on your journey to writing whatever that final piece may be. Sorry, excuse me. And another option that I've done for Align magazine before is using Instagram. So what I've done in this example that played, I'll play a snippet of it for you so that you can see what I mean. But I have screen recorded. So I've gone onto the article on my phone and I've screen recorded myself just scrolling through the article. And then what I've done here is I've then taken that into Instagram, put it into Reels, and then I've used the effect, which is a green screen. And then I've basically just plonked myself on the top of the article, and I've just spoken about the article and given a little bit of information about what the article's about. There's also, you can see here, a kind of headline for people to get instantly like attracted to, and then we spoke to 4 experts. Really simple, but it tells people what they need to know so that if they then want to go and look at that, they can then head to the link in the bio. So I'll just play a really short snippet of it because I'm not sure how the sound might work for everyone, but you can see. Oh. So that's just an example of how you could potentially use Reels to talk about subjects and your articles that you have had published on websites, newspapers, or your own blog, whatever it may be. Next one is lives. I haven't actually done a live for a very long time, but these are really great for collaboration. So as you can see here, I've collaborated with Abby. We did a live together, and this was probably about 2 years ago now. But if you've worked in collaboration with somebody on a particular article, maybe you've interviewed somebody, and if they're willing, then you might want to go live together so that you can go really in depth and talk about what your particular article or journal entry may be. They're a really great way at helping to position you as an expert within your industry. And it's another way, as well as stories, to help just build trust with your audience and get them to see your expertise. Lives, yeah, they are very daunting. But if you're doing them with someone, they're not always so scary. You can support one another, but that's just another way for you to kind of talk about your publication and your articles and really collaborate nicely with other people. So the next part is finding an engaged audience. I'm just going to have a little sip of water. So starting a new social channel can be pretty daunting. Finding an audience and trying to build an engaged community is also pretty scary. But there's some really simple steps for you to take so that you can start growing your following and just connecting with others and building on your brand. So I've put some pointers here. Find other journalists. So give them a follow. You can introduce yourself, send them a DM. Perhaps you've seen some content that you really like. You never know what these kinds of follows and little chats and comments might lead to. So it's a really nice way to connect with others and show that you're also willing to connect and chat and make relationships over Instagram. Another thing is you can follow magazines, journals, news outlets, whatever you find interesting. You can comment on their posts, express your opinions, and encourage conversations with others. The more people kind of see your name in these spaces, they then might want to learn more about you. They might go on your profile and see then what you perhaps write about or what your publication's about. And this is just a really nice way for people to see that you're super engaged in that particular topic. And another way to sort of build that community kind of feel about your account is always to respond to comments that people leave you. This is the best way for you to start building your own community, and it just kind of, it's just a nice bit of common courtesy that if somebody's reached out to you, for you to send them sorry, my throat's going, send them a comment back, even if it's something simple as like, thank you very much. It's just a really nice way for people to know that you've seen it and that you want to chat, basically. Now, this is the kind of process that I follow when I'm looking for different accounts or brands to follow that I like the look of, or even when I'm in clients' accounts and we're trying to find their target customers and all that kind of thing. This is kind of how I work through it. It's not, you might have a way that you prefer doing things, but this is just what I like to do. So first of all, if I find an account that I think is really interesting, I'll go through their posts and their content, and I'll like maybe a couple things. If I see something that I find really interesting, I'll leave them a comment and say why I like that particular post, or if they've asked a question, then I'll answer that question. Then what I like to do is go into their stories, if they have any that are live, see if they've discussed anything interesting. Perhaps it just made you laugh. You can now send like emojis through stories, or you can like stories. So it's just another way for people to see that you've taken an interest in their profile and what they've got to say. And then my final step would be to go and follow their account. This is kind of my preferred method of when I'm trying to connect with businesses, because what I think that does is when people are then in their notifications, they can see that you've either liked something or commented on something maybe even like their story, and then you've gone onto the follow button. In my mind, I think that kind of makes it feel like you've really taken an interest and then you want to learn more, rather than just following and then maybe liking things. I don't know why. See what works best for you, but that's a kind of method that I really like to use. And I often find that doing that, you then get comments and likes back and even follows, because you've really shown that interest from the offset. So that's how I would go about if I was kind of starting afresh, or you're just looking for new people to try and connect with and people to follow. Obviously, try what works best for you, but that's just an example. So I've just got some sections here about creating engaging reels. I know I've just shown you an example, but there's just a few pointers. So adding a hook. So the first few seconds of the reel are like super important, because that's what people are gonna hear or see first. So you want to just make sure that you get their attention and make sure that they stay and they carry on watching. You want to kind of be the expert. So you want to provide the value. Give your audience something that they can take away. You can either show your work, like I gave that example with the scroll through in the background, or you could even ask a conversation to encourage conversation in the comments, which will help to push your reel further. Entertain. So you may just have something that's quite funny. You want to do a voiceover that relates to your niche. When they're relatable funny, they're more likely to kind of trigger an emotion with your audience. So that's going to hopefully then push it out further, because people will start liking it and commenting on it, and so on and so on. And what I like to do at the end as well is end with a call to action. So tell people what you want them to do next. If you want them to comment below, do that. If you want them to click the link in your bio, tell them that. Really make it clear for people so that they then take that next step. I have to grab a tiny bit more water. Another thing with creating engaging reels is to always make sure that the text on that reel is super clear. So you can make sure that it fits in the center of the screen, because there's nothing worse than kind of like the text being cut off because it's in like the top corner. Keep it in the middle, pretty central, so that people can just like instantly hone in on that. Using trending audios. So using upcoming trending audios can help boost your chances of gaining more reel views, and then that also equals increased reach and then awareness of your profile. If you're doing voiceovers, what you can do is you can put like a trending sound behind that, and there's an option in Instagram for you to change the audio levels. So that's basically you giving an original audio and then having a trending audio just really quietly in the background, so that your video kind of sits into those trending sounds, but it's not necessarily you getting up and dancing or something. Most importantly, just have fun with them. Try out different styles, see what works really well for you. And once you've found your kind of style that you really enjoy using and that works really well for your account, keep pushing that, keep doing them. If there's something that doesn't work quite as well, try and like analyze what might have been the reason as to why it didn't work, and then see how you can just keep developing that to really create like your own flow with reels. Hashtags. Now, I'm not a huge lover of hashtags on Instagram. I personally don't think they do that much. People may disagree with me on that, but with hashtags, you can use up to 30. It's not always necessary. You don't have to sit there trying to trawl through a load of hashtags and find 30. You could even just use 3 to 5, maybe a bit more, but just make sure that they're really super specific to what the topic of the image or the reel is. That's will be my advice for that, rather than it being pretty general, like hashtag article. You'd want to put some like hashtag like politics article or something along those lines. So yeah, just the key to making sure that they're like really, really specific. Number 2 is make sure that your hashtags are accessible. So an example here is small business love. So I've made sure, sorry, excuse me, I've made sure that the beginning of each word has a capital letter rather than this example here. This just makes sure that people who use screen readers can easily navigate your content and hashtags. So what they do is then pick up on the beginning of each word rather than it getting confused with this kind of all-in-one word. So that's just another pointer to make sure that your content is accessible. And the next thing is you can check your hashtags progress. So when you go onto a post, you'll see at the bottom that it says like check insights or view insights, and that will show the insights for that particular post. And then from there, you'll be able to see how many impressions you got through hashtags, and it will just show you a number like this. But sorry, my throat's really going. So yeah, it can show you how many impressions you got from your hashtags, and you can always experiment with them and try out different things. But my general advice with hashtags is just to not stress out about them too much. They're kind of like the sprinkling on the top of everything else that you've made. Like, think of it like a cake. People go for the big cake. The sprinkles obviously make it look pretty, but they're not like the thing that people are necessarily going for it. If that makes any sense. So that's just a few bit of notes and general kind of tips for hashtags. Consistent content. So creating a personal brand across your social media channels, I think you should think about to begin with is the kind of fonts, colors and styles that really suit your personal style, and then using them across your content on your Instagram. So have a really to think about how you'd like to be seen, what you'd kind of like to be known for. Is your content quite serious, or is it more like fun and relaxed, and kind of have your colors that kind of reflect that. Just like a newspaper or magazine, stick to the fonts for the same fonts for headings and the same for body text, as this just kind of helps to build on your brand and show that if people see your piece of content in their feed, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's Anna's post, because they can recognize it instantly. And for colors, you don't need any more than 3 or 5. You can make really simple posts like the examples I showed before in Canva, just simply typing it out and adding in an image. It's a really nice way for you to showcase your work. And then these kinds of things, they're all small things. It's going to be more about you and how you talk and how, your caption style and how you connect with your audience. But these are the kinds of things that will be like letting your audience get to know you and your style. So here's just some kind of content inspiration that I have been looking at. So take a through the water. So here I've just given a few examples. So we've got Diet Prada, Dazed, Mashable, and Refinery. So they all follow the same kind of template for their article style posts. So for Diet Prada, you can see here, they're quite small, I apologise for that, that they've used the same font for their heading in each of these different posts. And then the font that's underneath, which is kind of their kind of subheading or a bit of information, a bit of context, is the same font as well. And they've also followed the same template where you've got heading at the top, image at the bottom. It's the same here for Dazed. They've done the same kind of thing. They've also got their logo in the corner, which if you've got one, then brilliant, show it off. But yes, simple image and article headline. And across all of these, what I think is key is that they've used images to support that particular post and article. They haven't necessarily done something like this, which I think can be quite, it's quite text heavy, so people can feel a bit daunted by that, rather than if you've got something that's kind of half and half or like 1/3, you've got a really simple heading and image underneath. Sorry. image underneath, and it just makes it super clear. Mashable here, they haven't actually gone for this option of the kind of cutting off a bit of the image. They've kind of darkened what it looks like. They've darkened the bottom of the image, and then they've put the headline on the top. So it's super clear, super easy to read. There's an image, so it makes it really visually appealing for people that are scrolling through, but it's also got a really simple headline to tell people what that post is about and what the article is perhaps about too. So it's just some takeaways. Got a really nice mix of text and image-based posts. They both kind of follow a brand image, so they use the same style posts for content that is about articles. And their content is kind of instantly recognizable because of their consistency across their whole profile. Stories. So I've given some more examples here of how you could use stories to promote what you've perhaps written about, or your journal, your news outlet, whatever it may be. And I just really liked these ideas. So again, Refinery, really simple, your image, text, and all of them you can see have utilized the link clicker, so people can instantly go away and read what that particular post is about. Guardian have kind of done the same thing as what people have done in the post. You've got a really simple image, got their text, and then they've just put the link here. Same for Dazed. They've kind of followed the same, almost the same layout as what Mashable did, but they've done it in a different way for their stories. And Fabulous Magazine, they've actually used a text that is native to Instagram. So they've put the image up. Sorry, excuse me. They've put the image up, and then they've got the text that's native to Instagram, and they've written about what they want people to know and that there's a chance to win, they vote. It's not as clear, I don't feel, as perhaps some of the other examples, but it's another way for you to use Instagram. And if you just want to pop something up quickly, you've got an image and you just want to write about it, you can use fonts and you can make it look super clear. You can experiment with what works and what fits in with your brand. And again, it's just using that link clicker to entice people to click away and read whatever it is, or visit whatever it is that you want them to visit. So yeah, clear templates are used to help show the audience what they want you to do. I keep saying link clickers, link stickers are also used to encourage people to read more. And the images just help to make the stories like super engaging rather than it just being a full bit of text. Now this next section, I hope I'm not going over too much. No, not too much. Understanding your insights. Now this is what's going to help you to see what content works well for you and what maybe doesn't work so well, so that you know to kind of move on from that, kind of alter it and see what then works well, and keep changing and yeah, working on your content. Let's say more. So just to be super clear, you can only get insights if your profile is a business account or a creator account. If it's a personal account, then you probably have noticed that you don't kind of have these options like insights and add tools and things like that. So what you can do is head to your profile, and my insights are shown here, but they're usually in this area. And then this will show you just an insight. Yeah, this will show you an overview of all the information you can then go and look at. But I'm going to go into some more details on those now. Audience analytics. So this here is kind of where you'll find, this is where you'll find your audience analytics in your total followers section. So you can click onto that and it will take you to this page full of crazy graphs, and you're probably going to look at it and think like, what the hell's going on here? But it's super simple. It's just going to tell you an overview of your growth, how many followers you've got, how many followers you've lost, where these people are located, their age range, and their gender. And this, yeah, it's just kind of giving you more insight into your audience and who's looking at your content, and if you are trying to target a particular audience, it can give you information. So if you're trying to attract more 18 to 24-year-olds, you can then have a think about how you're going to do that to try and shift those numbers a bit and try and entice that age range onto your account. But this is just a nice thing to look at sometimes, and just it can be quite interesting if you're a bit of a data nerd, like myself. I'm always looking at stuff like this on all my clients' accounts because it's super interesting to see, like, who's been here in the past 30 days. And you can change your option here, so you can do 7 days or 14 days, or I think 90 days as well. Now, your reach is what you will find in this section here, accounts reached. So this metric, you'll be able to see the total number of unique people that have seen your content, whether it's grid posts, like static content, your stories or your reels. So it's going to show you how many people you have reached. It will show you how many of those people were your followers and how many people were your non-followers. And it will also show you what kind of content got the majority of those numbers. So as you can see here, Reels was pretty good on this month for their reach. Posts, not quite as much, but still pretty decent. So that shows you that people are really engaged with people are engaging with the Reels, and that's something you could keep pushing to try and keep building your reach and getting that number higher month on month or week on week. Impressions. Now, reach and impressions can sometimes get a little bit confused and mixed up. But the impressions are the number of times that your content has been displayed on a screen, whether it's being clicked on or not. So this kind of data includes whether your content is being revisited. So perhaps somebody's saved something, they've gone back to look at it. And it will usually be a higher number than your reach. So this is just an example of what that will look like. And that will be found, let me go back, yeah, under the accounts reached section as well. Profile activity. So this is a super interesting one, and one that I follow a lot on clients' accounts, because I think it helps give you really good insight into whether people are taking that kind of next step to learn more about you if they've seen you in their feed. So this can help gauge whether people are interested in your content, your products, your services, your publication. And this is the kind of thing that your call to actions will be helping you with. So you can see how many people have visited your website, and you can see how many people have visited your profile in that time frame. So yeah, it's just a great way to try and track those conversions. So seeing if your content that month has really spiked someone's interest, and then they've gone onto your profile, and then if they've then, even better, gone onto your website tabs to then see what kind of things that you're offering in there. Accounts engaged. So this, I know it all looks like a little bit crazy, but it's just, sorry, it's all broken down for you. So you can see how many people have interacted with your content, what the increase on that is, or the decrease of that might be. You can again see the countries and the age ranges, and also the genders of those people. And it looks like this, and you can just scroll through and it will give you all the information of the accounts that were engaged, and also the content interactions that you received that month. So Instagram very kindly does break it down for you in that section, so you can easily just see each section as it goes, basically. It's just a nice way for you to kind of look back and see where your kind of interactions have come from, where, like, how many likes you got, how many comments you got, and how many saves you got in that month. And it's just a nice way for you to kind of keep track on that kind of thing. So what I've got here is just the beauty of tracking your analytics is being able to continually push yourself and improve with every post that you create. And my number one rule for all social media channels is just to remember to have fun. Take away the pressures, have fun with it, get creative and see what works and what your audience engages with. And yeah, remember to have fun. And now I think we are on to the question section. I know some of you have written in some questions already, so I'm looking forward to answering them now.
Awesome, thank you so much. And yeah, we have definitely had a lot of questions in, both in advance and in the chat. So yeah, let's definitely dive into some of them now. And I know, yeah, some of you have already popped them in the chat, but feel free, if there's anything that you would like to, that you've been niggling in your head throughout the session, do pop it in now and we'll try and get through as many as we can. We have had loads. Everyone wants
Amazing.
So a question that came up quite a lot in the questions we were asked in advance is, and I think some of people have touched on this in the chat as well, is just around that balance between personal and professional. So do you think that that is something you can combine in one, as you mentioned, you know, stories that maybe where you can bring in a bit of that, or do you think it's worth having two? How would you approach that as, you know, a journalist who lives their life but also wants to use it to promote their work?
So what I think would be a great idea is definitely post some more of your personal things on your kind of businessy side account. Definitely I think basically I've got a personal account and then I've also got my obviously Sociella account, and I do post some personal things on my Sociella account, but not so much like my weekend antics or anything like that. I think there's a really nice way for people to get to know you. I like to post on a Monday like pictures that I've perhaps taken of my weekend with a little like caption in that just kind of gives people an insight into like my interests outside of perhaps social media and content creation. So there's definitely space for you to do both on one profile, but what you'll want, what I think that you'd want is an account that gives you the kind of insights so that you can continue growing them and working on them and seeing what content resonates with your audience. Whereas like the personal account, you don't get any of that kind of thing. It's just like post your pics and connect with your friends and all that kind of thing. But there's also nothing to say that you can't then post your business stuff on your personal one, tagging your business and bringing in some more people from that as well.
Absolutely, yeah, makes total sense. And we talked a little bit about reels earlier. And we do have yeah, a couple of questions. So I might put these into two. So a couple of questions about reels, especially given you know, the way that they have been given a lot of algorithmic attention. Should we put it that way? Oh, I quite like that. So firstly, you know, we talked a little bit around how to actually kind of put this together and what might make a good example, but whether you might be able to say a little bit around how you kind of differentiate yourself from all of the other journalists who are already doing this. And this maybe ties into the second question that we got asked quite a lot is, you know, I think people have a little bit of a fear with reels and TikToks that it's about dancing, pointing to camera or doing whatever. Like, is there a way to, one, differentiate yourself from what people are doing, and two, you know, do that authentically? If that's not your style, that's okay, right? There are other ways you can do it.
100%. Yeah, you definitely don't need to be like dancing or prancing around your lounge and pointing to random things. So the example that I showed of the scroll through, I think that's a really nice way to give further insight into what that particular article or blog post might be about. So I think it's about kind of seeing or figuring out what your style is and how you want to do it. You could just do a really simple scroll through, but only use your voice. You can do, there's a voiceover option in Instagram if you really don't want to show your face, or you're perhaps just not feeling showing your face. And so you can do scroll throughs. And what I would do with that is just always add like a text that pops up to just really tell people what you want them to do, whether it's like click the link in your bio, read more, comment below. I think there's lots of people that obviously it might require a lot of heavy editing, but you can like make something up in Canva that is maybe even like a tap through of images of different things that you might have spoken about in that particular article. I just think it's definitely room for experimenting, figuring out what works best for you, taking inspo from people that aren't necessarily journalists. Perhaps you look at how some beauty bloggers perhaps do their reels and what effects they might use to make their content stand out, and then think about how you can then get your kind of article in that's mainly static and then make it into some kind of like moving video that entices people in. But just, I think the key with that would be to look outside of like journalists and news outlets and magazines, and really see if there's people that inspire you in life in general, check out what they're doing. If you can kind of imitate that and make it work for you, then yeah, have fun and just keep experimenting with that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely agree. In different kind of when we talk to people about like job applications, CVs, I'm always telling people like look outside of the niche you're currently thinking about. So don't just limit yourself to looking at accounts of other journalists or other publications. Often I think like the best ideas come from elsewhere. So yeah,
100%.
did a whole pumpkin carving video this week for that exact reason, because so many small businesses like talk over stuff whilst they're like making things, and I was like, well, I'm going to talk about freelance rates whilst I'm carving my pumpkin. So
exactly.
Think about other stuff you can do. Okay, what else do we have? We have so many, so I'm going to try and get through as many as possible.
Okay.
What else have we got? So this comes up quite a bit as well, actually, just around in terms of consistency and how much you should be posting. So in terms of, how, if you decide you want to give Instagram like a proper go to help kind of build that community and put your stuff out, how often should you be posting, would you recommend? Any other tips around that?
So I think to be consistent, sorry, my throat's really going. Being consistent, I think a nice amount of posts and like a decent amount that's not too laborious is like 3 posts a week at a minimum. I try and stick to that for Sociella's Instagram account. So it might be like a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday, and they're the kind of days that I will stick to. And that's a nice way to keep things consistent. I might do stories on a couple of those days, or I'll even break up the week, like on Tuesday and Thursday, then focus on stories. So that's my kind of method for how I keep things consistent, so that I'm at least always showing up at least once a day, even if I'm not there in my stories, like full on going for it and full on like selling, that kind of thing. I think 3 posts at a minimum is a really nice place to start. Also, it's got to be sustainable. So if you find that you can only fit in 2 posts a week, then let that be it, and just roll with it, and just make those posts like super engaging and interesting with the articles and the topics that you really want to talk about, and push them. It's completely what works within your schedule. 3 is a nice amount to start with. More, if you can fit in more, then that's great, obviously, but I think it's key to figure out what you can physically fit into your week or month to prepare, and making it work around your schedule, so that you're not feeling like completely burnt out with it, because then that's when it will just stop altogether, because you just freak out and you're like, no, I can't do this. So yeah, whatever's sustainable for you, stick with that.
Awesome. Right, I want to take one from someone else now, so it's just not me talking. So Taneeth, you had a question around captions, I think. I don't know if you want to ask that yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. Yes.
Yeah, so I post and I think, oh, as an author, I have to give something away, like some information, and then so I like posting these really long captions trying to give away information, and I'm just wondering, oh, is it too long? Am I giving enough value? Is it, I just don't know how to get it right. And obviously, I think I said to you before, and I think I've sorted this out, I was doing it on my phone, so it's just taking me hours. So I'm just it's just doing my head in. So I just want to get a kind of an idea of how long they should be. And I think you said now I can do them on my computer, is that right?
Yeah, you can definitely write them on your computer if that's what you feel easier with, and then you can either like copy and paste them in. If you've got a business account and you've got a Facebook account for that, you can use Facebook has its own scheduling platform, so you can actually just write it straight in the scheduling platform rather than having to type it out on your phone, if that helps at all. for that section. In terms of caption length, I think experiment with things, because think about how you use Instagram and how you look at content. If something's like really long, how often do you read the whole thing? Like, experiment with something that's super short, super snappy, and it just goes with an image, and see if you get more interaction with that. If you get more interaction from the captions that are longer, then maybe stick with that. But just, I think in terms of like not burning out on the platform and getting fed up with it, really try and experiment with different lengths and see what gets you the most kind of engagement in terms of like likes and comments, or even saves, because that's telling you that people want to go back to it later. Yeah, I hope that helps a little.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll experiment. But, you know, I just kind of thought, well, people aren't going to keep coming back to my books unless they're actually getting some value. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know if that's true, or I find real problems with, like, I'm ending up giving half the books away. Do you know what I mean? In bits on Instagram. But I'm not getting that much engagement, even though I'm giving away like the book. I don't know what's going on.
I think in that case, just really strip it back and just give like kind of really key bits of information and pointers, and maybe ask a question as your kind of call to action to try and get people to engage with it, even if it's something like, okay, now I can't think off the top of my head, but like using a call to action to try and encourage that conversation underneath. Perhaps you can, even if it's something as simple like, have you got any questions, feel free to drop me a comment, and then you can then actually have a conversation with that person in the comments, and then other people might have had the same questions and they can read it too. But I definitely think it's like finding the balance of giving away too much, because it's the same like with social media. I'm wanting people to use my services, obviously, but I also want to show that I know what I'm kind of talking about. So there's kind of like finding a balance of, sometimes I'll do something like uber quick because I just don't have time, or I'll like sit down and I'll really try and think about a caption that's gonna hopefully attract people and make them think, oh, she's an expert at what she does.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. I'll have a go. Thanks.
No worries.
And I had a quick, we're almost at time, but I had a couple of two quick follow-ups to your question beforehand. Just around, you are potentially aiming for 3 things a week. Maybe you're juggling a lot of stuff. Do you just have any tips on kind of like management? Obviously, you mentioned if you've got the business account, you can schedule in advance. But is there just, do you have a system? I imagine you've got like a content calendar set up or something. So, just if someone is thinking, actually, I want to give this a go, do you have any kind of organizational tips, I guess, to do that?
I mean, I'd love to say that I've got some really great systems in place for my own business, for my content, but sometimes it doesn't always work out like that. I sometimes write captions just in the notes on my phone when something comes to my head and I've got a free minute to actually think about something. But what I would do is I sometimes like to have like a kind of content calendar up. I've got a Google sheet that's like super simple, and I'll have topics in there that I'd like to talk about, and I'll just write myself some really simple notes, so that when it comes to actually creating the content for that, I've kind of taken away the thinking side of it, because I've come up with the idea, I've got the notes that I want to cover, and then I can go away and either create the post in Canva or film the reel that might relate to it. So like if you find yourself in an evening, your mind's free and you've got all these ideas coming, just popping them into a document with notes that you can think of that you might like to cover in that, and then you've kind of taken away one section of it, because it can sometimes, I always schedule things in advance because it just helps my brain that way, rather than trying to come up with something on the spot. So if you can plan even just a couple of weeks, and then you spend another couple of hours in another evening, or you've got the afternoon off or whatever, then you can like go away and create that content. But it's just taking away some of the thinking parts of that, because otherwise it can just feel like your brain's fizzing over with like ideas and information.
Absolutely. And I think that definitely answers, we had someone else as well kind of asking around avoiding social media and screen fatigue, and I think that's absolutely ties into that. And actually, if you're able to think ahead, even if just for a little bit, that really helps. We're basically at time. That was so useful. I know that so we will send out, you'll be able to watch all of this back, and we're hopefully going to send out, there are some additional resources that hopefully we'll be able to send out, and potentially, some more things Ella might be able to kind of give you as a little bit of a surprise, to give some final resources. But equally, if any of you are equally covering anything Instagram related, your expert is here, and very happy to chat to you in future press releases. And so how's best to get in touch? Obviously following you on social, I guess, is probably a good start.
Either on Instagram or LinkedIn, or my website. I can drop my email into the chat box now, in case anyone wants it. But yeah, just follow me on socials, say hello, come into my DMs, and I'll be more than happy to chat with you and to help you. And yeah, it's been really lovely to spend the hour with you and talk all things Instagram. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, and you want to message me, then please do feel free.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We will send this back out to you. We do write a kind of like wrap up as well, so we will make sure that we kind of tie that to the questions that were asked. So maybe if something didn't quite get answered, we'll take the points out that we discussed earlier, and pop them in so you get that. And hopefully we will see you again at something else soon. I keep getting confused with all of my dates, but in the rest of November, I can't tell you which week. We've got freelancing as your first job after or during studying, and then we've also got how to sell your ideas to multiple publications so that you can make more money from the same story. And then also something about self-assessment and tax, which is very boring but also very essential. So do that. But yeah, hopefully we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much again. That was so great, and have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you.